Welcome to the Belly Button Window channel and episode 19, part 3 of the Jimi Hendrix story, like you've never heard it before. In this episode, we continue the deep dive into the group's grueling US tour and February of 1968. Please remember to check the channel's community tab and video information page, where you will find links to related videos, performances, and stunning photographs from the period. On Tuesday, 13th of February, the Jimi Hendrix Experience performed at the Ackerman Ballroom at the University of California, Los Angeles. According to bassist Noel, the only notable event was that the crowd rushed the stage during the performance, while Mitch Mitchell recalled, "The performance itself was nothing exceptional, but backstage the Warner Reprise rep introduced us to this reed-thin, really ill-looking person who turned out to be none other than Alice Cooper. It scared the hell out of us. He'd just been past A1, physically fit for the draft. We thought, if this guy's healthy, what chance do we stand?" Mitch also stated in his autobiography that at a later stage, he in fact received a draft notice based on having spent more than 6 months in the States, but that he got around it by traveling to Canada for the day and continued to do so regularly. Wednesday, 14th of February, the group flies from Los Angeles to Denver, Colorado, where they participate in an interview filmed by local TV. Later, the Experience performs at REGIS College, Fieldhouse, Denver, in front of a 4,700 Valentine's Day audience. Setlist: Tax-Free, Fire, The Wind Cries, Mary, Foxy Lady, Spanish Castle Magic, I Don't Live Today, Purple Haze, and Wild Thing. At the end of the concert, Jimi leaves to participate in a jam session at the Family Dog with Tommy Bolin. Noel records the following significant event in his autobiography. In Denver, Jimi was feeling bad, but instead of talking it out, he took it out on the audience. I kept telling him to share his problems, but it rubbed him the wrong way to admit that he was troubled. He goes on to add, "But it was more than Jimi bringing us down. It was management. We never saw them. I was dying to get us all together for a good long air-clearing talk, but nothing changed." On a more positive note, February 14th brought Jimi Hendrix a partial victory in the PPX litigation. District Judge Charles Metzner granted Yameta's motion for a preliminary injunction, pending the trial, blocking Capitol Records from selling the Get That Feeling LP. Still though, Jimi had a lot of unresolved troubles in his private life, including multiple paternity claims, for instance, and on the financial side, the PPX mess prevented Reprise royalties being paid. Noel stated that, "Not having an ounce of business know-how between us, we relied on our feelings to make all our decisions. We knew this was no way to do business, but we didn't know what else to do." Thursday, 15th February, saw the Jimi Hendrix Experience perform at the Municipal Auditorium, San Antonio, Texas, supported by the Moving Sidewalks, Neil Ford and the Fanatics, and the Soft Machine. Frank Gravis wrote the following account of the gig. "I was at Hendrix's first show at the Municipal Auditorium. Parents wouldn't let me go to the second time he was in town, you know that deal. I remember the Swiss Movement opened, then it was Neil Ford and the Fanatics, then the Soft Machine in with a truly great light show, then Hendrix. I remember Jimi's gear vividly. He had 2 Sun 1200S heads with 4 Sun cabinets connected to each cabinet with 2 15-inch speakers. Noel had almost the same setup, but he had 1 Sun and 1 Marshall head, same number of cabinets as Jimi. Mitch Mitchell was unmiked. I haven't seen a drummer struggle so much to be heard to this day. The PA was a Fender Dual Showman head with 2 Vox Super Beetle cabinets, 1 on either side of the stage. Jimi's mic was barely audible. Because of the way Jimi's gear was wired due to the extremely low impedance load on the amplifiers, both Sun amps overheated and died, 1 amp about 40 minutes into the show, the other soon afterward. Jimi threw his guitar down and walked off in disgust. However, that 40 minutes was absolute magic. I had never heard such a huge guitar sound, haven't to date. I remember it like it was yesterday. It all came from the stage, unmiked. If only his gear hadn't died. Anyway, I overheard a few grumblings as I was walking out of the auditorium, complaining about there being 2 hours of opening acts and only 40 minutes of Hendrix. I thought to myself, yeah, but that 40 minutes was life-changing. And it was. Friday, 16th of February. The group flies from San Antonio to Dallas, Texas, to perform at the State Fair Music Hall. While there, they do an interview for the Dallas Morning News, later published January 21st, 1968. In an interview by Robert Wilonsky done in 2010, Angus Wynne, famous Dallas concert promoter, shared his recollections of Hendrix in a piece titled Jimi Hendrix on Fire at the Fair Park Music Hall. When I first met Angus Wynne some 20 years ago, I remember asking him, "Were you friends with Jimi Hendrix?" "No," Angus says. "They were not friends, not really." Angus first met Hendrix when he was a shy sideman in Little Richard's band. Not long after that, on February 16th, 1968, Hendrix landed at Love Field Airport for the Dallas gig, which is where the picture with Hendrix was taken. Angus explains its origins thusly. "I got a call from a girl I was dating, who was a stewardess with Braniff. There were actually two girls I knew who were on the flight. But my girlfriend called and said, 'Jimi Hendrix is on this flight and we're going to Love Field. Why don't you come out and visit?' I said, 'Great.' So I walked out onto the tarmac, which is where that shot was taken, right after he walked down off the stairs from the plane. He said, 'Hey man, where are we?' He didn't know which town he was in." Angus laughs, "But he was awful nice. I walked back with him and the guys in Soft Machine who were opening the show. I helped them through baggage, and they invited us out to the show." Which brings us to the performance at the Music Hall at Fair Park on February 16th, 1968. I asked Angus what he recalls of the concert. "A little," he says. He remembered hanging out backstage, where Hendrix paced the dressing room. "Hi," Angus says. "Excited?" He continues, "Seemed like he broke a couple of things. I don't recall what they were. He was in a good mood, though, a real cheerful kind of guy." He recalls a concert hall filled with smoke. "Purely for lighting purposes," he says, laughing. Soft Machine in particular had an astounding light show, he says, but he reminds that back in those days, audiences stayed in their seats. "It was," he says, "a very mellow sit-down audience. Hendrix and the band, of course, were anything but, as evidenced by an astounding audience recording that has survived the distortion of history. At one point, Hendrix even jokes about how, since he and the band play so softly, they need to make sure they're in tune. Hendrix scholar Chuck Dixon offers this account of the concert's place in the history. The show opener being the first documented live performance of Are You Experienced? I asked Angus, had he heard the show since that night in '68? Absolutely not. Not till today. Set list for the gig: Are You Experienced? Fire, The Wind Cries Mary, Tax Free, Foxy Lady, Hey Joe, Spanish Castle Magic and Red House, Purple Haze, Improvisation and Wild Thing. Saturday, February 17th, and The Experience performs at the Will Rogers Auditorium, Fort Worth, Texas. Setlist for the show: Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Can You Please Crawl Out Your Window, The Wind Cries Mary, Fire, Catfish Blues, Foxy Lady, Hey Joe, Purple Haze, Wild Thing and Improvisation. And in something of a milestone, the band was paid a whopping $25,000 for this show. Noel recorded the following: In my mind, Fort Worth was the beginning of the end of the band. It was the first time we had been assigned separate dressing rooms. When I chanced into Jimmy's room to see how he was doing, I was met with, "What are you doing in here?" This separatism guaranteed we went on stage as cold as ice. Jimmy and I argued openly and bitterly during the show till Mitch said something funny that we had to relax, but the feeling persisted. Billy Gibbons of the Moving Sidewalks meets his idol Jimi Hendrix on this tour. Guitarist Billy Gibbons, later of ZZ Top fame, claimed for years that he jammed backstage with Jimmy, after which they gave each other a guitar. Billy gave Jimmy a 1957 left-handed Stratocaster, and Jimmy gave Gibbons a 1959 Stratocaster with a maple neck. But as ZZ Top biographer Scott Nance explains, that's probably not true. Hendrix was impressed by the young Billy Gibbons, but that's as far as it went. In his usual style, Billy exaggerated things. Billy claimed that Hendrix was so impressed that he gave Billy a Stratocaster guitar, although none of Billy's friends at the time saw the trade. Sidewalks drummer Dan Mitchell said, "If Hendrix had given Billy a pink Stratocaster, one of us would have found out." Also on the 17th, Jimmy is elected World Top Musician by Discon Music Echo. Sunday, February 18th sees Hendrix and The Experience perform at the Music Hall, Houston, Texas, for 2 shows. The set list for the second show was as follows: Intro, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Fire, Hey Joe, Foxy Lady, The Wind Cries Mary, I Don't Live Today, Catfish Blues, Purple Haze, and Wild Thing. The following day, Monday the 19th, and the group flies from Houston back to New York City. Tuesday the 20th of February. The Jimi Hendrix Experience is interviewed at the Wellington Hotel in New York by Jules Fremont and photographed by Gilbert B. Weingart for the East Village Other, published March 8, 1968. Later at the Scene Club in New York, Jimi participates in a jam session with members of Electric Flag, Soft Machine, and the Tremolos. The Experience plays the next 2 nights at the Electric Factory in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The club, which had just opened earlier in February, saw the band performing 2 shows per night. Wednesday, the 21st of February at the Electric Factory, and the first Soft Machine show is cancelled, but they performed the second. Neville Chesters noted, "We had to get another group to play instead of Soft Machine, due to Soft Machine organ which didn't arrive." The emergency support act was Woody's Truck Stop. Bobby, the former manager of the Electric Factory, and Jimmy's roadies had to hold back the amps because Jimi was shaking them so much with his guitar, which is said to have made the audience go a little crazy. Also on that day, the group does an interview for DiscoScene magazine. Thursday, the 22nd of February at the Electric Factory, also supported by the Soft Machine and Woody's Truck Stop. Of the show, Neville Chesters recalled, "Jimi continued the second set for a long time, didn't finish before 3 a.m. Temple University News, in a piece titled Hendrix Featured, 21st of February review. Outside was a crowd of 3,000 resisting the cold for close to 2 hours in its effort to gain admittance. These people were here for one thing. The Electric Factory had on stage the Jimi Hendrix Experience. The Experience is one spade, Jimi Hendrix, and 2 English studs with frizzed hair, Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding. Their music filled the room with a hard rock sound that came crashing down from above, giving the impression that countless performers were manipulating psychedelic sound machines. But actually, it is Hendrix on stage loosening strings and using a vibrato attachment to extract the most amazing sounds from his guitar. All his songs possess a beat that's easy to move to, but the magic of his songs lies in the way. The music blends together. The music is supposed to create a feeling, and that is the Hendrix Experience. ISCOSCENE, the 21st of February review, a Jimi Hendrix Experience. We literally fought our way through the milling crowd which had queued up in front of the place hours before. Gaining entrance, we kneed and elbowed a path to what passed for a dressing room. We knocked and entered. It was the wrong dressing room. We pardoned me through the crowd a 3rd time. On entering the right dressing room, we were again greeted by the sight of Noel Redding passionately consuming what was left of his fingernails and scratching indiscriminately and furiously. Mitch Mitchell was in a yoga position at the rear of the room. Jimi, attired in brilliant skin-tight green trousers, a purple shirt slashed to the navel, beads, chains, and a black Navajo Indian hat adorned with a Moby Grape button and sundry other items, was perched on a table. He was tuning a funky red guitar with a screwdriver and acknowledged our presence by twanging one string. After a desultory remark or two from us and a mumble or two from Jimi, we cranked over the old portable recorder. Music from the house loudspeakers drifted through, along with several hangers-on. We experienced Jimi Hendrix. Question: How are you enjoying your stay here? What about the crowd? Jimi answer: They're all right. Question: You're drawing a much larger and older crowd than usual. Jimi responds: That's nice. Question: In Up From the Skies on the Axis album you say, "Please let me talk to you. I would just like to have a ringside seat. I want to see and hear everything," etc. Does this express the feelings you have toward people? To which Jimi replies, "That's how I felt at the time I wrote the song. It depends on how I feel at a particular time." Question: What do you think has created the great popularity you and your group have? To which Jimi answers, "Well, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look at it." Question: Did you know you had 3 albums on the charts right now? Jimi replies, "I only know about 2. Question: Now you know there are 3, insists the interviewer. To which Jimi responds, "One of them, Get That Feeling, is a whole lot of hogwash somebody tried to pull on us. It's a very bad scene. Somebody trying to capitalize on somebody's name. All they do is pick bits of tapes. They picked up some jam sessions, and then they put words and all that on it. We're only on about 2 tracks. Question: Would you call your music electronic blues? Jimi replies, "I don't know. We haven't had a chance to call it anything yet." Question: How are you feeling tonight? You weren't feeling well today. Jimi responds, I'm feeling very tired. Question, why are you wearing a Moby Grape button on your hat? Jimi replies, somebody put it on and I never took it off. Besides, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Question, your lyrics vaguely remind us of ballads and other folk songs. Jimi answers, yes, I like that. In our next album, we're going to have songs written by all of us in the group, maybe some different people too. Question, have you found this city more receptive or as receptive as other cities? Jimi responds, yeah, it's receptive as other places. The people are very eager to listen. Question, do you think people are listening to what you do musically? Jimi, I don't know, I don't know if they're listening, but they seem interested. Question, Jimi, how did you originate your style? Jimi replies, well, I have an idea of the songs I want to hear, and I try to get them down. Question, what you're playing is a lot different from the other groups. Jimi answers, quite naturally, I want it to sound different and good. Question, many groups say their whole life is music. Is it the same with you? Jimi replies, well, yeah, that's nice too, but it's also nice being around with people. Question, is there any philosophy that you abide by? Jimi responds, not unless something comes up. I can't give you a good answer. Question, what inspired you to go into music? Jimi answers, well, everybody and everything is music. You can be inspired by a lot of things. Question, when did you start playing? Jimi says, oh, I can't quite remember. About 7 or 8 years ago. Question, was that in a folk vein? To which Jimi answered, no, I was trying to learn to play like Chuck Berry and Muddy Waters, trying to learn everything and anything. The reasons for Hendrix's popularity are many. Mainly, though, it's probably because he gives off an aura of total excitement during his performances. He is hell in motion and does all kinds of weird things. That concludes this installment of the series. Stay tuned for the next installment, where we will complete the deep dive into February 1968 of the Hendrix story and the band's US tour. Don't forget to subscribe for future content updates. And by the way, if you have any stories or anecdotes to contribute, we would love to hear from you.